Hey everybody, it's Laura Eisenhower. I have a very special guest with me today. We're going to leave her name out of it. This is just very sensitive information, and it's just not wise to share too much about her identity. So we're going to keep it anonymous, and I know that's going to create a lot of questions for people. People want proof about certain things, but what basically this interview is about is my guest was a victim of human trafficking and would like to expose some things as far as what this experience, was like for her. She will help people to understand what to look out for and to protect themselves if they ever come across a similar situation. And we'll hear her story, and then we're going to go into what she knows about Trump, how she was assisted by the Trump administration in her healing process. We'll go into some things about the trafficking rings, and I'm going to name some names here and some things that she's heard. And she also grew up in Florida and was acquainted with Trump growing up, who actually went to the same church as her. So I'll ask her about that. But that's pretty much my intro and what you're going to get from this show. And I want to say thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
So I hope I kind of mapped it out in a way that you feel resonant with.
Yes,
Awesome.
It was perfect.
Oh, great. So I just want to ask you, just tell us a bit about yourself and what happened in your life that brought you into this sort of ring, and just, tell us the story and how you got out. And, I'm just going to give you the floor to just really, share as much as you like as far as how this all came about.
So I originally am from Michigan, and I moved down to Florida 7 years ago, I'd say. And where I'm from in Michigan is very protected. We're, kind of in a box, I could say. So when I came to Florida, it was all a new world, and I had gotten into modeling, which the agency that I'm with is very good, and they're very sensitive about stuff like this. So they very much protect their girls. But I had kind of gone off on my own. I worked at a strip club, and there was a gentleman that came in with this girl who was about my age at that time, offering a modeling job. And so instead of going through my agency, which I shouldn't have done, I went with them. And it seemed like a very legitimate, it was sponsored by very big things like Publix and Pizza Hut and Pepsi, like all these big companies are sponsoring it. And, it was a girl my age. I was like, why not? She seems fine. So from that is when I decided to trust them and go to a very big, it's a very known event in the Keys. And it's a boxing match in the Keys. And I was supposed to be a ring card girl, which is like the girls who go in the rings and they hold the signs up. So that was a real part of the job. But the person who was bringing me down was not, he was a recruiter, I want to say. So this guy went by a fake name, and he never showed anyone like his ID or like ever had it with him. So nobody really ever knew his true like identification. And when we got to, as we were riding down to the Keys, it started getting weird, because in the car they would ask me about like cam girling, or they would ask me about just like weird sexual stuff that I just wasn't very comfortable with. And they asked me if I was comfortable getting dressed in front of them, which I told them I'd probably just go in the bathroom because it really was out of my comfort zone, to which then they got upset. So it really kind of went on from there as to, going, and one of the guys who was a part of the event getting very suspicious of everything going on and asking the other girl if she had known what was going on, and she did. And she had spilled some information such as, yes, we have videos of Allie. I'm sorry. I totally just said my name. But
oh, wait, what? You said
I said my name.
Oh, okay.
Accident slipped out.
I think if you didn't say your last name, that's probably okay.
Okay,
but
perfect.
I want you to feel comfortable, and I can take it out.
if you're able to find it, I'm sure, you know, if not, I'm sure it's not like the biggest deal in the world. Because it's not even my actual, it's my little nickname. But
Oh yeah. Okay. Then if only if you feel comfortable.
yeah,
Because
it is.
yeah. You have like 100 names. Nobody would ever figure it out. So we'll
Oh yeah, there's a
scramble our
lot of
brains. No, I'm just
a
joking.
lot of apps.
Right. You'll never find. You'll never figure it out. So okay, keep going.
So basically, she had stated that they have videos of me like getting changed, that she edits them, and that, you know, they want to offer me an international modeling job. And it would come with a contract. But before I'd get sent off to these international, you know, places like across the seas, I would have to go to an island and just stay there for a little bit and then go out. It's a lot like the internships that were, you know, on the Netflix series about Epstein. And when I'd watched that, it really hit. I mean, it was very emotional hearing that, because it was basically like the same thing I was going through. But instead of mine being an internship, mine was modeling, because it was, you know, I was getting pretty big in modeling.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, she said a lot of really high up people go to this island, and she did end up naming names of some people who are a part of this island. And in those names included the Obamas, included Biden, and included the Clintons, which
Okay.
are
Go ahead.
which are all part of, you know, it's all coming out to light that they're figuring out they're part of the big ring.
Okay, so the human trafficking ring. This was brought up to you. You kind of got recruited in, connected with a branch of an agency that was the recruiter that was hiding his identity. This got brought up, and you were talking to somebody that had witnessed this or had been there, and they named these names. Now, the confusing part is Biden's not on the flight logs. I wonder if...
Exactly. That's kind of the weird part. And I guess if you see it, it's not looking like a lot of people are on the flight logs that I'm sure have gone to that island. That was kind of the weird part for me too, because I was reading through those flight logs. And it was like, I don't know, it was weird to me, because he was definitely one of the names mentioned by her, but he's not on there at all.
Yeah, I find that odd. But the Clintons are...
Oh
maybe
yeah.
they've been able to figure out a way to... who knows? I mean, maybe there's going to be more that comes out. Maybe
Yeah.
there was a big deal about his name being on there because he's running for president, and maybe they figured out a way to get his name off, and there was some threat. Who knows? But then the Clintons on that
yeah.
too, I'm thinking, you know, because they're really good at suiciding people. Okay, so you heard that, and you definitely heard that Biden is connected.
Oh yeah, I definitely, I mean, his name was for sure mentioned. And to me, I mean, that was, at that point, it was almost unbelievable hearing this, because the information was taken back to me. The person who'd found that out had gone back to me and said, "Are you aware of what's going on?" I was like, "No." And then he relayed everything that the young woman had said to him about, you know, what they were planning on doing, what kind of contract they were going to have me sign, just like a whole bunch of stuff.
Right.
So,
okay, keep going.
oh no, you're good. I lost my train of thought.
Okay, so they were going to mention what contract you had to sign.
So the contract that they were going to have me sign, I didn't get to see the one about international, but I got to see one, which I should have taken a picture of it, because that would have been perfect. But it basically stated, while I was doing a photo shoot, the person who was taking my photos, which was the recruiter, he was going to pay me $60. Well, in order to get that $60, I had to sign a contract that basically said he could use any pictures and videos of me, and I mean any pictures and videos of me, from 2 years prior to the photo shoot to 2 years after the photo shoot. So he was basically like okaying, like, if I find anything with this girl, like naked or anything like that, I can use it and sell it out there for $60, which I've signed a lot of modeling contracts, and I've seen contracts of like, will you allow us to put you in such and such magazine, but never like, I can use photos for, and it'll like name the specific date and the specific photo shoot, but never like such a long span of time.
Okay. Right. Gotcha. But then, so what part of the contract had to do with what they were gonna expect from you? Like, what was the?
So that was a different contract that I didn't even get to see because I got so upset about having to sign the first contract that they were focused on even getting me signing that first one. It was just something that the other girl had mentioned, like we want to have her sign a contract that's basically stating like you're going to go international.
Okay. Gotcha. You're talking about the one that you didn't sign.
The one I didn't sign either one of them because
Either
I
one.
was very strict. Yeah, I was very strict on that because I'm a part of a modeling agency.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. All
So I
right.
can't say
So
anything.
but the one about going international, was that the one you saw? I'm sorry, or the other one?
No, it was the other one. It was the
Okay.
one about using my photos. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So this guy that you were talking to that knew this woman, she had been on the island, so everything she was reporting to this guy that you talked to was telling you what you were in for if you were to go to the island. Is that correct? Or
Basically was stating that I would just go over there for a little bit, be like a time period before they can figure out like where I would get the most work done, like the most business, like what country to send me. It's like, and it's a common thing to do in modeling as well because there's like European fashion times and then there's like it's just like the Asian fashion. It kind of varies with countries, so like it would have made sense. Okay, we're gonna wait to find out where we want to send her, but we're gonna send her this to like such and such place first. But it was all just kind of like a weird situation that it was just crazy how it never clicked from me being so exposed to like them being sexually open, especially because I hadn't mentioned the golf cart ride yet too, which was like it was almost to ease in and see how comfortable I was with like having other men touch me basically.
what's this thing about the golf cart?
So the golf cart, around the Keys, we rented a golf cart to ride around, and they wanted to pick up like guys because we were two pretty women to like flirt and like promote the event that was going on. And then like the other one was like totally okay with it, and I was like not really that easy with the idea because I'm with somebody. So then when we were picking up guys, and it was like to make money as well, when we were picking up these guys, the recruiter was like, well, why don't you guys, kiss, or why don't you guys, if they touch you, just let it happen, or, maybe go a little further. And that's when I was just like, no, I got to stop this. This is not fun at all.
Right. So you're hearing about this from this guy. What was the guy's role in all this?
So the guy seemed to be the recruiter. He was like the one who picks up these girls, and it's quite common. It's like usually a guy who acts like he's this big modeling agent, or like he, runs this internship, or, something else that he could offer that girl that appeases that girl. And then usually there's somebody else, like a girl about the other person's age, to be like a hook or like a bait, so
Right.
that it makes the other person comfortable.
Right. Yeah, just like they were
So
kind
that,
of
uh,
showing some of the interviews with the Epstein victims, the whole recruiting
he,
process.
yeah, it was like these girls are going out and like recruiting other women to go over. It's crazy.
Yeah. So this guy, he's the one that was telling you about the woman and what you were getting into, and that's if he's the recruiter. Is he the same guy that mentioned these big names?
He never mentioned the big names. It was just the other girl who was the bait. She was the one who kind of like spilled everything, which honestly, like, it surprises me as well because usually when you're put in a situation like that, you don't want to come out on it. And the other guy had said, well, why don't you just stop? Why don't you just get out of it? And it was because he had blackmail on her and was basically threatening to expose her to everybody if she was ever to try to break away.
Okay, but you didn't. Did you talk to her directly? I thought.
Yeah,
Okay, you
her
actually.
and I stayed in the same room. Her and I stayed in the same room. Like, we were friends the entire time.
Okay, because I don't know how I might have misheard that the guy told you about what this woman was saying and you got it from the guy.
Oh, no, no, no. So the guy, the videographer for the event, talked to the woman about what was going on. Her and I stayed in the same room, but he told me about what she had said about that stuff. She never told me about that stuff.
What that stuff
It
be?
was that stuff being like the what they were planning on doing with me. That was all him saying, like getting it from her and then spilling it to me.
But he didn't name the big names, she did.
She named the big names to him and then he said it over to me.
Okay. All right. So sorry,
So it was kind
everybody.
of like a little.
I got confused about that.
No,
Okay.
you're good.
So she stayed in a room with you. She didn't really get into it with you, but you were familiar with her and so this guy that told you all this, he's the recruiter that's basically exposing what she said to him.
No, the recruiter was the starter guy. There's the characters in the story basically are the recruiter, the girl who is the bait, and then the videographer. The videographer
Okay.
for the event was the one who, you know, got suspicious of
Oh,
everything and started to ask questions.
I gotcha. I gotcha. Sorry, everybody, for my confusion. It's been one of those days. My
It
brain's.
really has been. I feel you.
Oh my gosh. Okay, gotcha. So you got to know her. She didn't really tell you much when you stayed with her, though.
No, she was very like quiet about it. I mean, she would kind of constantly like try to bring in like sexual conversations into the like, you know, oh, what have you done? Or you've never cam girled? Well, have you ever like straight like just like different questions about being sexual, which to me was like a little bit weird because I don't even talk about that with like my close friends.
Right, and you're like pursuing a career, and then all of a sudden it gets into like, the sexual, and so okay, so the videographer gave you a warning about what you'd be getting into. The
Yeah.
contract seemed weird, and you were very discerning, and so didn't sign it. And you got basically you got an idea of that the modeling and going to the island is connected to how they would use you and traffic you, right? I mean,
Yeah, it would basically how he said it is he was like, this is just what I was told by this girl, but you know, they want to offer you some international modeling job, but they have like videos of you that they're selling out. And there really was a bid on me, and she had released how much of a bid there was. There was about a $10,000 bid on me, which is sort of cheap in this whole, you know, whatever. But they had like a 10,000 something
purchase
bid on me.
so that this ring could purchase you.
So that it was like whatever guy, it's basically like a big like it's almost like a shopping, I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like somebody purchases you.
Like out of a catalog for $10,000.
Yeah, kind of like out of a catalog, kind of like what was going on with Wayfair where you purchase a cabinet for what, 13 grand.
Can you believe that just kind of went silent and nobody's freaking out about that? I mean, it seemed like the most obvious
It's
thing.
crazy. Honestly, no. And I remember because I will say I've bought from Wayfair before, you know, before I even knew any of this stuff. And I would go on there and there'd be furniture that was not even worth like a lot of money that would be up for like 13, 14, $15,000. And I'm just like, this makes no sense.
Right, and that's in the price
Now
range.
it does.
Right now it makes sense. So what you've seen and what you've experienced is that they have a lot of fronts and they have a lot of ways to do all this kind of hiding in plain sight, right?
Yep.
So were you trafficked at all? What was part of your story that you were trafficked yourself, or like how far into all of it did you end up getting?
So it basically got that far to where I went to Key West and they had somebody bidding on me. And mind you, I didn't let them pick me up from my house. I'm sorry, my words are. I didn't let them pick me up from my house. I actually drove 30 minutes south to a friend's house and let them pick me up there. So they had no idea where I lived. But they kind of, I keep losing my train of thought. They basically what it was is they had that, they picked me up from there, and then when I went, the furthest I got into it was them putting me up, like, I don't want to say for sale because that's so degrading, but that's what it was.
but you didn't sign anything, they just did it anyway.
I didn't sign anything to basically if they got busted for it, that they wouldn't get punished for it. I guess, if that even makes sense, because you should always get punished for selling a human, but it's not like it. I don't even know how to explain. It was just such a crazy experience, like hearing that you have a bid on you and that they're trying to get you to sign these contracts, and that, it was just,
yeah.
What?
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, it's crazy, yes.
No, it really was. You can go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, so because they had a bid on you, but you didn't have to sign a contract for that part of it. But because you didn't sign a contract, that helped you to get away, whereas somebody who might have signed a contract would have a much harder time, right?
Exactly. It kind of helped me get out of the whole ring situation a lot faster, and without, actually going through the damage that a lot of these girls are going through by getting sent to this island, and, going through all of that situation.
Basically, signed the contract, they're owned. Right?
Basically, if they had to sign a contract, it's basically like an ownership, like signing over, everything. I feel bad. I mean, I never got to that point, thank goodness, and I'm grateful for it. But It was definitely to a point where it's just even the thought where, like, I was almost sold like an object.
Yeah. And and that would have gotten you on Epstein Island with this thing about being an international model that would have been, just a part of the process. And then you would have found yourself on the island like those other girls who were recruited for similar reasons, or for massage therapy or whatever, to boost their career, and they might have signed something. So what, like, tell us a little bit more about what you heard from the videographer, the guy. So he mentioned names, and how did he describe sort of the structure of how the human trafficking works with these big names and these elitists?
Basically, all he was really told was just how I would get sent to the island, and there's a lot of these elitists that go over to that island. And she did say there's a lot of celebrities that, people would never even imagine, but they go over to this island. And that's all he really knew. He just said it doesn't sit right with me. So he was like, I don't like what's going on here. And he's like, I'd be very, very careful with the situation, because he had called his girlfriend, kind of let her know what he had heard. And she had said to him, that sounds a lot like trafficking. You need to make sure that these girls are okay. But she was already too deep into it. And I was the one who was like just barely in it and about to get sent out and to be in the whole big ring before he was like, or until he was like, you need to know what's going on, like, watch out for it. And when he did mention, because the whole time, like, I was suspecting little things, like, but I was kind of like, that'd be crazy. Right. And then when he said it, it really, like, opened my eyes to it, to where it was like, oh wow, this stuff really is happening right now. Like, this guy's trying to get me to do, like, if for the smallest things, if I didn't sign a contract, he would get so upset, and he would call me ungrateful and, like, yell at me over just not signing a contract.
And that's the recruiter in the story.
And that was the recruiter.
And he just was kind of bothering you and harassing you and just trying to keep you close and push you to do something like that.
Yeah. And him and I did not get along, because I was a very, not to say I have a mouth, but I definitely have a mouth on me when I feel like I'm put in a spot. So him and I were not getting along very well at all, because I wasn't just giving in to everything that he was saying to do, because I don't do that.
Oh, good.
I don't give in.
Right.
So, I really stuck up for myself, but, on the last day of everything, his car had broken down, and my boyfriend's a mechanic. And so basically what had happened is, to the recruiter's car, is he couldn't turn the key because it was a Mercedes, and the key fob was dead, is what my boyfriend was saying. So it would have been an easy, like, drive to Ace Hardware, or whatever's in the keys, and pick up, like, some batteries and change it, and the car would have been fine. but he wanted to take it into a shop, which would have taken like weeks and weeks and weeks, and we wouldn't have been able to get home because I had absolutely no money to my name, like nothing.
Right.
So, you know, my boyfriend was on there trying to tell him like this is what's going on, and he just would not listen to it, and he wanted to take his car and like to this shop. And he got upset with me because I wouldn't stay there with him. Like I wouldn't stay down in the Keys with him. And that was the last day, and we were literally in a screaming match with each other. Like he was calling me ungrateful. He was telling me like he's like, you're really ungrateful for everything I've done for you, and you don't appreciate, like it was like basically trying to manipulate me into staying there with him.
Right.
So I stormed out of the room. I was like so angry, and went downstairs where the videographer was, and he was sitting like at this outside bar, and I sat next to him. I was basically in tears. I was like, this is what had happened. So the guy was like, tell you what, the videographer, he was like, I'll tell you what, he's like, I'm gonna give you money for a bus ticket and food so that you can get home. And he said, you go home instantly and you call the trafficking hotline, because you know, he's like, this has got to stop.
And
so
phone call you had with him,
the phone call for who?
That was from a phone call you had with the videographer where he told you
No,
that.
I went downstairs to the bar, like downstairs in the hotel to the bar is where he was at drinking.
Okay.
And I sat next to him, and that's when he told me. I sat next to him, and I like just broke down in tears, and that's when he was he was like, I'm gonna give you money for a bus ticket and food. He was like, get home.
Okay, so the videographer is definitely the good guy here, but was he working for the recruiter basically?
So he was working for the event, not the recruiter.
Okay. Yeah. So and he helped you to get out of there. Let's just rewind a second and then pick it back up. My question is, with the woman that you stayed with, who's the one that told the videographer, you stayed with her before or after she went to the island? Probably before, right? This
was after I stayed with her. I never got to the island or knew anything about it while I was staying with her.
Yeah, when were you staying with her, as far as her timeline of what she had experienced that she wasn't quite telling you?
I guess from the sounds of it, she'd already been there.
Okay.
From what I can kind of piece together, it sounded like she'd already been there, and she was kind of getting like, she kind of got the gist of everything. Because a lot of the girls who are the bait have already been there.
And they're allowed to leave, but they're still owned.
They're basically owned, but they leave like with these recruiters.
Okay.
That's kind of what, and I can only say that as like I pieced it together from how it sounded like she was saying if she had known so much about the island, then she'd been there.
Yeah.
But it was never like a definitive, like she had been there and this is what it was. It was just kind of like, this is what she had said to me. This is what's going on. And this is what they want to do with you.
Right. And she, after you stayed with her, that's when you found out from the videographer later, like how long after you stayed with her?
So it was during the duration of that time. We were in the same hotel room. So it was like kind of during the duration of that entire time that.
Okay, so you stayed with her, but what she told the videographer, he ended up telling you.
He ended up telling me, but he told me because she was a part of it to kind of keep it under wraps that I knew about it. Because it might, you know, like really piss them off and then get them to speed up the process or do something,
right,
you know, drastic to get me.
Right, because it wasn't safe for her to be able to expose it, but she felt she could tell him, and he felt concerned for you, knowing what he knew. And the duration was basically in a window of, you had been exposed to her by staying, you know, with her, but he gave you the heads up. Okay, and so she had, you know, more than likely already been to the island, and this hotel was with the recruiter to basically hold you guys there to sign contracts and kind of understand what plans they have for you. Is that why you were all staying at the hotel?
So the hotel was like sponsored. The hotel was sponsoring the event, so it was kind of like all for the event.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know how many people knew about what was going on. I quite honestly, I knew very little about the situation that was going on. I just knew I was supposed to go there for a job and then, go back home, and then all this stuff started unraveling.
Right. Isn't it like the recruiter is almost like this foreign entity that comes in, takes advantage of the event, and
Yeah.
tries to recruit people that are going, for an event that really doesn't have anything to do with the recruiter?
Yeah, like, hey, I'm gonna
Like going to a rock concert and some sleazeball tries to get you. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're totally good. That's basically what it is. It's kind of like somebody who is like a foreign object to that event and is just coming into like, oh, here you go, I can supply you with this.
Right.
But they, to that's kind of like their bait to use to get us to go in there.
And the videographer is there for the event. This other entity comes in, and one of the victims, or this woman that you stayed with for the event, had gotten caught in what this recruiter was, an example of what this recruiter was up to, as somebody who was really in the hooks. So you were seeing what was going on with her, running into that recruiter. It was the reason you guys stayed in the same room, because of the recruiter or because of the event?
It was because of the event, I guess. I'm not quite sure. I think it was because of the event.
Because she was there for the event to do something, but she had gotten...
She was there for the same reason. So she was doing the exact same job as I was.
Oh, right. And she fell prey to this guy that was trying to capture you. You found out what you needed to in the nick of time. So the videographer helps you get out of there, gives you money, you take a bus. Or what? Let's go back to that part of the story. So the videographer, you're trying, he's wanting to help you, and then what happened?
So basically, he bought me a bus ticket, and then he gave me money for food. And the bus ticket, I got, the closest it would get to where I lived was Fort Lauderdale. So my boyfriend actually ended up picking me up from Fort Lauderdale, and the only reason he couldn't drive all the way to Key West is because his tires were about to blow out. So he had made it to Fort Lauderdale to pick me up. I took a Greyhound, and that's when I just, like, in that car, it was so many mixed emotions of like relief and anger and sadness, and just like, I broke down.
Oh man.
Yeah, that night, I really tried to relax, and it was a pretty restless night. Thank goodness for him, he's very supportive, and he was never upset about anything. But he definitely tried. No, my boyfriend.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So then I got home, and I did stay connected with the videographer on Facebook. I got home, and I instantly called the trafficking hotline, and they wouldn't do anything because it wasn't, in their terms, it wasn't trafficking because I hadn't been raped or anything like that, which I think is sad.
Put out on the market, and you were about as close as a person can get to having that happen, and they're ignoring you when you're basically helping lead them to a criminal ring, and they're just ignoring you. That's pretty messed up. That must have been really difficult to handle.
It was tough because it was like they didn't have enough proof on it. They didn't, that's everybody's big thing, is proof. And I get it. But at the same time, it's like, here I am. I'm not going to sit on a boring day and be like, oh, let me just prank a hotline like this and let them know. Like, this was something that had happened, and I was crying to the lady while telling her, what was going on, and it just wasn't. At first she was like, let me look into it, and then they called me back, and that's when they were like, we can't do anything about it. They're like, it doesn't sound like it was trapped.
Okay, it sounds like it needs an investigation, and that's what
we've
done, is let's investigate. Let's find the proof. Let's retrace your steps. Let's get somebody to accompany you on the investigation path. And, has this videographer ever felt like coming out or talking, or is he having to lay low?
I think he's really kind of laid low about it. He's kind of a bigger name in the industry, so for him it would be like a big expose, and I get it. It's not anything. I would love to come out with my name and everything, but I also have to protect. I've got a daughter, and I have to protect, my family.
Of course, it's amazing you're speaking up, and It's so
It's
important.
a very, yeah,
Yeah.
it's a scary thing to even come out with, because it's like, you know, to talk about a traumatizing event like that, it's just, it's tough.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah. And you're so incredibly strong, and just so much gratitude for your willingness. And, you know, I can't imagine just seeing all that, you know, and then the island, and then hearing about these names. So let's go back into that, and then we'll talk about Trump, because you mentioned the Trump administration helped you to get the help you need.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, and people are going to be like, there's going to be comments under this. Where's the proof? Where's the proof? But
Oh
yet,
yeah.
these are the same people that are sharing accusations against Trump that have just about as much so-called
Well,
proof.
not just that, but there are people who I'm sure have posted about the Me Too movement, where it's like you're supposed to be there listening to the victims of sexual abuse and rape, and it can't be under an umbrella of like, well, I'll believe you as long as it involves people who I hate
Yeah.
or people who I don't know. If it's somebody that I like or I want to vote for, I'm not going to believe you. And it's,
Yep,
you
that's
know,
it.
to me that's just sad, because I'm coming out and I'm telling my story, and this, I mean, it's tough telling my story. I mean, it's been a couple years since, so it has passed, but no matter what, it's always going to stick with me.
Yeah. No, it's huge. I'm so glad you got out of there when you did.
Yeah.
And okay, so Biden's name was definitely named. I mean, as far as the
Mm-hmm.
dots that you've connected, they basically, the Clintons and Obama and just this Biden thing, this, you know, that represent the Democratic Party. So no offense, Democrats, this isn't a reflection on you, because these people are doing this, you know, time
Yeah.
to drop that and do what's right, and just, you know, take this seriously. Because the thing is, I mean, and I'm not going to speak for you or assume anything, and you can, you know, let us know, but there's no political reasons behind you and I talking there. You know, I
Oh
mean,
no.
me personally, I'm not Republican or Democrat. It would be a lot easier if I wasn't you know, a person who's somewhat awakened to this kind of stuff, to necessarily be a major Trump supporter, you know, or be somebody vocal about this next election. I could see myself maybe gravitating towards the outer facade of like a Biden or the Democratic Party, because I've always sort of related more to the Democratic way. I don't know. I'm not even political. Like, I failed every test connected to government. But
Yeah.
the point is it goes beyond that. And if you strip down the political party thing and you can see who is who, first off, there's corruption on both sides. There have been plenty of Republicans that have been caught up in this kind of stuff. So this is not a political thing. And what she's
No,
doing,
not at all. And
exactly.
there's Republicans that they found were busted as well. So none of this, I mean, I'm just like you, where it's kind of like, you know, at this moment I'm trying to vote for the best, and obviously the person whose administration helped me out. But at the same time, there is Democratic views that I also agree with that I don't agree with on the Republican side. This is all, as much as people want to make it political, because everybody wants to make everything political, it's not.
Exactly. So I just wanted to make that clear. And whoever was planning on posting a bunch of stuff in the comments, thinking that there's a political agenda,
Yeah.
yeah, that couldn't be further from the truth. So through research, through investigation, through talking with people that have been able to see through, and through having an open mind, it's really stood out to me that, you know, that this administration is not the kind that's bought and owned, which mostly is the case. I mean, the party of both sides are owned.
Hmm.
But there's something very, very unique about this administration that we haven't seen. And so, okay, so I was going to just ask the structure of how they run a trafficking ring. Did you ever pick up on how the Obamas, the Clintons, and how they work with Epstein and Biden as well? Is it just they get
So
a lot of funding from it, like also with the drug rings as well, that they get billions of dollars being connected to these rings and also participating in them? Or did you get any of that or pick up anything?
I mean, I didn't really pick up anything like that, but it would actually it would make complete sense, because it's kind of like, if you've ever heard of, you know, sell your soul for fame,
Yeah.
it could almost kind of be like that in a way. And I know people are coming out about things that are going on, and not to get all conspiracy, because I promise this stuff's as real as your next door neighbor. I think there's been mentioned like a lot of blackmail and a lot of with elite
Oh, yeah.
people. You have people who have money, and then you have people who are elite, and those are part of the 1%, and those are the people who, you know, they run half the world, and you have to wonder, you know, how much your creativity can really get you in the world until you have to start doing some dirty work to get even further.
Right. Like
You know, kind of in that.
actors, all those that are complicit, that know this stuff is going on, that agreed to something in order to be
Yeah.
famous. Because you can't really be out there and super famous. They won't allow that unless they own a piece of you, right?
Yeah, and it almost seems like all of that stuff. I mean, the Clinton administration is a big, you know, again, not to turn it political, but they really are a big, they've got a massive agenda, and they were called out for it, you know, in Haiti, trafficking these kids. And there's kids out there that are born to be trafficked. They've got no identification, no nothing to get them. And these higher ups are just putting them on this island, and these poor children are bred to do nothing else but to pleasure these elites, which is sick.
It is absolutely sick. So this 1% is basically using the tactic of blackmail to own creative people that were looking to have a career, that might have compromised themselves and got themselves hooked into something that's very difficult to get out of because of the cameras, because of the blackmail, and especially when you're young, being drugged. You know, a lot of these Hollywood kids coming out saying, you know, I went to a party, I was a young boy, and they're prepping me to be, you know, this person in the world. And I mean, there's been so much out about it, and they hardly get a slap on the wrist, you know, these people, these pedophiles in Hollywood.
Well, they're so elite. They almost own, like, I can't say almost, but I'm pretty sure they own like police. They can buy out basically anything they want. The thing is money goes a lot farther than what people want to admit, and it can go to, I mean, completely corrupting these kids, because they can buy out police and be like, okay, well, don't say anything, and I'll, you know, do this for you, and I'll pay for this for you, or, you know, what is it, so that you can keep them off my tail type of situation.
Yeah, that's the problem too. And some of, you know, policemen show up at these rituals and these satanic ritual. Okay, now I'm taking us into I need to go right now. Okay.
You're good, because I'm totally in all of that.
You're totally what?
I totally agree with all that, what you were going into.
Oh, yeah. No, it sounds like you have really opened yourself up to, you know, being willing to look at this darker stuff. You were up against it. You saw it. You experienced it firsthand. As far as, you know, it's an aspect of all that, and and then that helped you to, you know, probably do research in ways that probably a lot of people around you aren't willing to see or look at. I find that, I mean, you know, there's not a whole lot of people willing to go down certain rabbit holes, and it gets mocked a lot. And, you know, there's real victims and there's real stories. And I've talked to, you know, victims of satanic ritual abuse and stuff like that. But anyway, we're going to just shift gears and we'll talk about Trump, and also warning signs for people, you know, Okay. So you grew up in Florida.
I grew up in Michigan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I grew up in Michigan, and I will be careful who I mention, just because, you know, I know when we discussed on the phone, I do want to be careful mentioning, just because we're very close to those people, and I don't want to open anything up for anyone. But, you know, we've been very close to people who are close to Trump since I was, you know, since my mom has been with my dad, basically. My dad went to high school with some people who are very close to Trump. And from that, we used to come to Florida every single year. And I can tell you firsthand, Trump does go to church. He goes to church on Christmas and Easter, which is when we go to church, which is fine. I mean, judge if you want to judge, whatever. Everybody has their own thing. But, you know, from there, he was always a very nice guy in church. And he still continues. He continued to go through his presidency. I haven't been to church since it's been probably like a year.
So he's still, oh, go ahead.
He's still, I'm not quite sure. He wasn't there on the previous, because things are getting a little bit dangerous now where there's a lot of people out for his head.
Yeah.
But there's literally a picture of me posing next to his Secret Service, like everything. And there was a picture that my dad took where only my hand made it in, but, you know, I was out of it. So people, you know, picture never happened and I'm not in the picture. But basically what it was is Trump shook my hand, a germaphobe, I know, but he shook my hand and he looked at my dad and he said, "Your daughter is absolutely stunning."
Aw.
And I tell you, his kids, I mean, Tiffany was sitting behind me. Barron was sitting behind me. His kids are very, very well behaved. And very, I mean, amazing people, super, super nice. So I've been going to church with them for a while.
Wow. And this was when you were visiting Florida, but then you ended up moving to Florida, right? Or
So then we ended up moving to Florida, and, you know, he ran for presidency. So his name started really getting out there, and he still came to church even through all this stuff going through. And, you know, he's just always been a warm, welcoming guy. I mean, I know how they say on TV, and I know too, he's New Yorker, not to say anything. I love New York, but they're very bold in what they say, and they like to speak the truth. So, you know, no matter how he gets the truth out, it's going to be the truth. It's, you know, it's the ugly truth is basically what it is. So how he talks, I get it. There's sometimes it's like too much, but all in all, from knowing him, I mean, he is just not that type of person. He just could not, he's not a rapist. He's not a pedophile. I mean, he absolutely adores his kids, adores them.
right. It's just, I guess what people's argument would be, sometimes I ask questions because they're not necessarily mine so much, but I know that others would probably want to know. I mean, it's a really easy thing to cover up. Sometimes, you know, the kindest and most, like, you know, friendly person on the outside, and this isn't me saying it because I don't know, that it doesn't matter how he acts. You know, these are major, like, hidden skeletons in a lot of people's closets, because there's a lot of prominent people in prominent positions that seem like the upstanding citizen in their community that, you know, end up, you know, one finds out that they're, you know, a pedophile. I had a client who found out her father she wasn't molested by him, but her brother and, you know, others were, and it crushed her. That was her hero, and they had a great relationship. So what really clenches it for me, though, is what you said about in the screenshots. And the only reason I said that is because people will be like, you know, even though that's your experience of him, sometimes that's, you know, not enough, but there's a lot more to this story. You said something about, well, first of all, his administration helped you. We're going to get into that. But you said something about him being an insider and helping to take down Epstein. And you said something about, I'm trying to find it. You know what I mean? Just that he tried to get the cops involved. They weren't very helpful, and he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago or whatever that place is.
So
tell us all about that.
So basically, I mean, and this takes research of, like, true, I mean, you have to go deep in to find it, unfortunately, because they really like to hide, you know, good things about Trump. But if you really look into it, Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. He wasn't, you know, once he found out what was going on, he was over. He didn't go for that type of stuff. That's not him. So he kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago. And then he went to police. I don't know if that's the correct order. He might have gone to police first and then kicked Epstein out. But there was a sheriff that actually reported and, like, let it out and said, Trump did come to us and say, this is what's going on. Like, he did come to the department and let us know what was going on. But there wasn't much that they could do because there was such a higher up buying him out and basically holding all this money, because money is power.
Yes.
It really is. And holding all this money. And Trump has money too, don't get me wrong, but then you've got money and you've got blackmail.
Right. I mean, if he was,
So,
if they had some blackmail on Trump, I'm sure we would have seen solid
oh,
evidence or videos.
it would
They want to
have
destroy him.
been.
So how, yeah, you know what I mean? And if he's going after Epstein and they had dirt on Trump, they would have a way more than these allegations on Trump, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. If they had, I mean, there's so many people out to get him. He's got an entire, I've never seen such a political divide in my life.
Oh
And I
my
haven't lived
God.
that, but this is absolutely, I mean, you can't even go about a conversation without politics being brought into it, you know? So if they had concrete evidence or videos or anything on Trump, don't you think the Clintons would have released it? Don't you think it would have been put out there so that they could have absolutely just destroyed him? It's
Absolutely.
not out. They have nothing on him. They can't find it. I mean, he's just not that type of guy. I
And they're
can tell
known.
you.
Sorry, say that last part.
I can tell you he's just not that type of guy.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. Epstein's known for making sure everything is filmed. That was part of his role. So if they were great
Yep.
buddies, it didn't matter. Epstein's going to pretend he's your great buddy no matter who you are. If you're rich, you're famous. I mean, that's part of the lure is, okay, let's all just be in this, either let's be in this, greater kind of club together and be operating things like, making sure the cameras are up and we're blackmailing people, or
Yeah.
he's befriending people so that he can film them and blackmail them if he needs to, in order to own them, in order to, play his role. And he wouldn't kick out somebody that he was palling around with. If they were like, I mean, there's only one or two scenarios that could happen. Either they're great friends and they were both behind manipulating others and blackmailing others. That's why there's but that wouldn't make any sense, because then Trump would have his back and be on his side and help to cover things up. Or the other scenario is that he got close to Epstein, and if he really did something, he would have been filmed and they would have absolutely an easy way to take down Trump with that evidence. So no matter what scenario anybody tries to spin, it seems utterly ridiculous. So people sharing little memes or GIF or whatever you call those things,
Gifts.
with like him palling around with Epstein, like, well, look, they're great buddies. It's like, excuse me, how many of us have been at a party or had our photo taken with some scuzz that we didn't know was totally a scuzz at the time? And when we did find out, didn't we remove them from our lives? Well, yeah, that happened with Trump too. And it's damn obvious.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, I can tell you from personal experience right now that, we've had friends before, and they come after us and we're like, wow, you really are just a, scud, like what you were saying.
Yeah.
And you no longer friends with them, but we've got photos with this person. So people would be like, oh, well, you hung out. Yeah, obviously we hung out with them.
Yeah.
But that's before we knew anything. Like that's everybody.
I know. I mean, that's like common sense. It's like that recruiter. He might have gone to the event and been just like another participant and party member, and nobody would have known that, oh my gosh, he's come here to traffic girls and pick them up. And until somebody knows, it's just another face in the room, or, I don't know. I mean, Epstein obviously stuck out a little bit more than that. But yes, it's very clear, especially with the election coming up, that these accusations, okay, so you said that it wasn't hush money when he paid them off because they were speaking truth. It was basically, this was the only way to get them out of the way, is to say, okay, here, take this. I'm trying to run a country here. I don't have time for this shit. But it wasn't like, because it's true, because if it was true, there'd be evidence, especially if there's a connection to Epstein because they film these things. So what were your thoughts about that, about how he dealt with these accusations? Because people have lists, like there's 5 people, he paid off 5 families, some of really young kids, even a boy, I think, and saying, Trump's a rapist. So what are your thoughts on all that and how he had to handle that with no proof other than statements?
Yeah, so I come from a prominent family, And I can tell you firsthand that there's a lot of people who will go and basically say whatever it is, however drastic they need to go to get money. And that's, I mean, it's exactly that type of situation, because these, if you read over the court things, I mean, obviously, if he had done something just like, why can't I think of his name right now, but like R. Kelly, or, they're all big names. And when they found out about what was going on, I mean, they're in jail now. So with him, how easy would it be to pin him for, hey, this guy raped me and I want this amount of money for it? And then for him, it would destroy him. What's he going to do? Go to court to fight it? He's a man. I mean, in that time, it was like, the public's going to, if somebody comes out and says, this prominent man raped me, the public's going to nail that guy until he's either dead or in prison. So how do you save yourself out of that other than just, hey, here's your money. Can you just shut up and leave me alone? This is not what had happened. And there were statements, and I wish I could find it again, but there were two girls who stood before the court and said, Trump is not a racist. Not Trump is not a racist. Trump is not a pedophile, and we've never seen him sexually abuse any girls or kids.
Right. And what was their relationship with him? How'd they know him?
I'm not quite sure. I'd read it on something. I do a lot of research into this stuff, and it was something that was quoted that these two girls had stood up and said in front of a judge and jury and basically stated Trump is not a rapist, and Trump has never been sexual with any girls.
So
or children, I should say, since there was a boy included in these accusations.
Yeah.
but say he did go to court, even though,
Raspberry.
oh, there's all that noise.
Sorry, I'm moving. I had to walk through the kitchen.
I know we're kind of this is just amazing. I'm so appreciative to meet you. Okay, so say he had gone to court though. If there was no evidence on him except for just a person stating, wouldn't he probably even, he probably wouldn't have ended up in jail, but that would have been what they'd attempted to do on a public level, is to nail him, try and destroy him, maybe even plant false evidence. Who even knows, especially with so many people after him. But wouldn't it be because there really isn't any true evidence that he would probably win the case anyway if he had to go to court?
Hopefully, but then at the same time, you have to think too that, I mean, he's such a prominent guy, and I mean, the public does have a really big say on what these judges do. I mean, I've seen a lot of, I'm very thankful for these people putting Save Our Children out there, and how this little girl was, there was just so much pressure about putting her back with her dad so that she was out of the hands of her mother and her mother's boyfriend. And the public had put that out so much that they were finally just like, all right, we'll look into the evidence. We'll really figure this out. So they really do have a big say on the way that these rulings go. So if it was really out there to that point, I mean, the public would have absolutely nailed him to the point where he would have been,
it just would have been ugly. It would have been ugly.
In a hole, yeah.
And some people do get imprisoned that are, innocent. And it is very much exactly what you said, the public opinion and how that steers outcomes. So
especially with somebody who's such a big name.
Oh yeah, totally. And also anybody who's a real victims and families, you can't easily pay off somebody.
No,
you can't. Most victims are going to say, I don't care about the money, I want justice.
Exactly. That's the other
money
thing too.
At the end of the day, it's going to be spent. Anybody that I have come to know, I'm not saying everybody, but most victims I know don't give a crap about the money. They're just like, whatever, I don't want your money, I want justice. I mean, Virginia, yeah.
And I can tell you, because I've personally been a victim of a lot of sexual abuse before. I mean more than I would ever even like to admit. And until I'd say 3 years ago, I kept it pretty much to myself. I mean, my closest friends knew. I even at one point I was in the hospital, and I was, you know, the night before I was seizing out in the hospital and I'd almost died.
Oh no.
And the next day I was raped by somebody who I thought was a friend of mine.
Oh,
and the next day
shit.
an officer came in and he was like, well, you know, you showed up, you told us you were drugged, and they were like, we just want to suggest you doing a rape kit. I remember being raped. I remember it happening, but I was so afraid of like putting it out there.
Yeah.
That I literally sat there and I was like, no. I was like, it's okay. You know, I can't remember anything. And they were like, well, do you remember who the person's name was? And I was like, no, I don't remember at all. Like, I was playing dumb, and in my head I knew exactly who this person was.
Yeah. No, I understand. It happened to me in high school, and I was horrified at the thought of like this being a huge drama, because it was like a well-known football player. And so I kind of like tried to figure out how to work with his family, and just, you know, like, you gotta deal with your kid. It's tough because there's so much, I mean, trauma. It's like, it's hard to know how to act. So I'm just curious, like, what kind of families these people are, you know, what kind of parents would allow their kid to represent a person that's just going after Trump. They must hate Trump so much that they're willing to just create these allegations.
Not even that, it's about the money. I mean, money is the root of all evil.
It really
It's got these people, I mean, these families, obviously, as I can tell from talking to you, and I'm the same way. I grew up where you don't go after other people's money. I mean, if you want money, you make it yourself, you grind and you make it yourself. That's at least where I came from.
Oh my God.
You don't go after or make allegations about somebody and say, oh, this person did this to me, I want your money. Yeah. And I'm sure, I mean, I can't speak for all sexual abuse victims, and my heart sincerely goes out to them, but I'm sure those victims are not sitting here like, all I want is money. They're sitting there with trauma in their heads. What they want is they want to scrub it out of their brain. I mean, I just remember sitting in the shower just scrubbing myself, trying to get myself clean and never feeling clean.
Yep, that happened to me too. And I was never the same again. And I was like such a young person, and I used to be, you know, it like literally, how it energetically changes is insane.
It eats you, and then it eats at, you know, your relationships that you have, and the type, you know, all that stuff kind of led into me being in abusive relationships. And thankfully now I've finally found a guy who is one of the greatest men you would ever meet. He's got
I'm so
one
happy
of those.
To hear that. Oh, good.
He really is amazing, and he guided me through that and helped me, you know, be back on a level of like, okay, I don't deserve to be, you know, I'm not just some blow up doll, so to say.
Right.
I'm a person.
Valued for who you are as a soul. Yes.
If I want to say no, I can say no. And there's nothing like, if I say no to him, he's like, okay, no problem.
Aww.
Doesn't do anything about it. Like, he's very patient with everything and understanding.
Oh, that's so good. I'm so happy to hear that. Okay. So yes, you know, being somebody who's, you know, been dealing with, you know, trauma, and you're not going to cover for somebody. You know, it's like you have a deep intuition. You're a researcher. You've seen things firsthand that most people deny even exist. And and it's very clear. It's like, you know, what I'm getting from your vibration is you're like 100% certain that President Trump is not a pedophile. And, you know, I really appreciate this, because he needs to be exonerated. So many people are holding on to this, but yet they don't give a crap about what's on the Clintons, or that Biden might be connected. And there isn't enough on Biden is the thing. And he's, you know, running. So
not even that. People are watching him on international TV grope these children, and they're making memes about it and ignoring it and completely just moving on from it. It's like, how can you ignore that situation, but you're going to sit here and bash the president because you don't like the way that he talks?
Yeah. And but then they'll show pictures of, oh, you know, the way he hugged his daughter, or, you know, this or that. But it's like, it's like literally a second of time. Like if I move my hand across my face, but you just got like one capture of it, it might look like I'm slapping myself against the face, but my hand's actually moving, right? So you can take a shot of somebody And that's way different than video clips, because there's video clips of Biden like literally making these girls so uncomfortable. You can see it in their eyes. You can see everybody around him like nervous, like, okay, creepy Joe, you know, don't be so obvious, you know, to the
He's
camera.
been told by his administration right in public with a microphone there to stop. They're like, okay, you got to stop. Like, in public, because he's showing this to people. And not only that, I mean, this guy's got dementia. He's falling asleep during interviews. Not to turn political again, but that's not somebody I want to run this country.
Oh, no kidding. And I really, you know, I have no reason to like Trump. There's no, I'm not a political type. I've never voted, but this election is so crucial. The reason I've never voted is because I'm like, okay, it's all infiltrated. Both sides are owned. Why is something showing up completely different for somebody who has exposed these kind of things? I mean, something way different is going on. So just to go back into, all right, he exposed Epstein. What happened though? You know, you call the hotline. No, you didn't get the help you needed. Bring us
They
in.
didn't
What
anything.
happened next when you call the trafficking hotline and you didn't get really the help you need? And how did Trump's administration step in?
So I do have insights into Trump. I do have, you know, ways to kind of get to him that, you know, general public usually wouldn't. But my boyfriend had brought up to me, he's like, you know, what about, you know, the president? Which to me, you know, even though I've known this guy, it's still like he's still like that big figure that's like, wow, that would be a far stretch to try to reach out to him and
Oh yeah.
try to get anything. But he was like, you know, you might as well try. So I did. I emailed, and then I kind of let the people know who know him, like, this is what I did, and they know me, so they kind of got that message forward, and from
Right, 'cause
there,
you have friends that were closer. Yeah.
exactly. So from there, they helped me get therapy. I mean, I didn't get money from it because that's not what I wanted, but they helped me get therapy to kind of talk through it and understand too what to look out for and how to protect myself from it and my family.
Wait,
You know,
so
and
this came directly from Trump's administration?
so the funding for the therapy did, yes.
And
I
so
mean,
the friends helped let him know, and he helped to make sure that you got the help you needed.
he helped to make sure that I got the help I needed to get this whole situation, just help work through it, because it really does. I know people are like, why would I go to somebody who is paid to talk to me? These people, I understand they get paid, but they really do care, and they have a lot of really good advice and a lot of good insights that they can give you, and they really, really helped me. I mean, not to say I don't have PTSD, but if I wouldn't have gone and gotten that help, I wouldn't be able to sit here and interview with you and be so open about, like, we need to open this up and talk about it, because I'd still be terrified for my life.
Yes.
You know, what if this gets out? What if people find out who I am? You know,
Right.
type of situation. And now it's like, you know what, people need to know what's going on. And though I'm not willing to give up my identity right now, not to say I won't in the future, if everything continues to go the way that it's going, where these busts are happening. But
Right. It'll feel safer. And, you know, because people are going to be
yeah,
obnoxious. They're going to, you know, it's not enough truth. I mean, just hearing you, your voice, I mean, it's just, nobody can doubt it. I mean, you're such a clear person, and you're just, everything I feel from you is for absolutely the right reasons. And you've gone through a tremendous amount, and it's totally understandable, you know, that you are keeping it, you know, keeping your identity private. But you mentioned that it wasn't just you that you noticed the administration's helping, that you can verify that the Trump administration is helping children and is working to save children and take
oh,
down rings. What can you tell us
1,000%.
about that?
1,000%. I mean, he is sitting here. This is a man that, first, I want to say, has not made money off of politics. He's donated his entire, you know, what he makes from being president, he donates that. And he donates his own money too. He took $35 million to aid human trafficking.
I saw that,
and I know a lot of people say, well, it's a cover up, well, it's this and that. Trump, I've noticed this too, that Trump is the only one who is addressing this pedophilia and this trafficking. And I haven't noticed once the Obamas addressed it, the Clintons addressed it,
no.
Biden addressed it. anybody like that address it. And he's the only one standing out there, even with all these people claiming that he's a pedophile. He's the one out there saying, we need to help these children and we need to help them be safe. Who's going to donate $35 million? That's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money. So
If he's in it.
And you got the help you needed. You do have connections. So people might say, oh, well, she has connections. What about those who don't have connections? There are projects, if people have seen the news, where, what's the project called? Where they've rescued a bunch of children. They put it in the news recently, 39 children in Georgia rescued from child trafficking.
I saw that. I can't remember what the project's called, but I saw that where they rescued those people. So if he was in it, why would he want to rescue people out of it who could, if he was in it, who could possibly spill what had happened?
Yeah, I mean, it's just so obvious. And that, it was targeting. I'm a public person. I've been targeted. When I first came out, people were there was smear websites out on me saying I was a Nazi whore. It's like, excuse me? Like, what? Like, oh my gosh. Right? So, I mean
it's crazy how blind people can be to this, and it's a really scary world, especially for us sexual victims. I know, and I want to say this very loosely because I do have a friend who is sexually abused, and she's terrified to come out about it because of the ridicule that she'll be getting.
Yeah.
Yes, it's Operation Not Forgotten.
Oh, okay.
I just looked it up.
Yeah. So it's very obvious with some of these news stories, and there's a lot about that. And you know and trust that this administration is addressing this. It gets brought up. There are videos of him, talking about this, and people are like, nothing's happening. It's like, are you kidding me? It's not true. Or no victims are speaking up. Well, you're speaking up, and there's a lot of people that are afraid to speak up, and exactly reminding them that this is not, the easiest thing. So I know, we've been on for a while, and I know I could talk to you for way longer than would be fair, but and we'll have to maybe do more in the future, and I just hope to stay connected. But yeah, talk about okay, before we shift gears into like the warning signs and things for people to watch out for, I'm just looking through the one of the texts, please Joe cannot be in office. I have a personal story pertaining to this. And okay, that's a big one. We talked about was he, when you say he was an insider, though, the way you described it, you can state that he was for a fact an insider. Yeah, an insider as in, he
was like the FBI in that situation, like kind of figuring out what was going on and then trying to report it and get help for these kids, trying to get them out of this. I mean, he's a father. He's a father of a lot of kids, and a lot of very intelligent and brilliant kids. And these kids are not afraid to speak in public and support their father, and just the love, you can even see it in his kids' eyes. The love that they have for their dad is phenomenal. I mean, Ivanka is a very educated woman. She really is.
People are very concerned about Kushner, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know so much about Kushner, so I wouldn't be able to speak so much on that, but
yeah, and a lot of times just the guilt by association, or this person's linked to that person, so therefore, what about the black sheep of the family? What about the walk-ins? What about, people that can, be a part of something or come into a family and absolutely not represent that family? The Kennedys are an Illuminati family, and look at what JFK tried to do, and look at he got assassinated. So you can have connections to these kind of things and not represent the darker of agendas. So there's a lot there. Gosh, I had just one last thing before we go into what to warn people about. Hold on. Oh man, it was good. It was important. Yeah, today's the lose our train of thought day.
Tell me about it. It's Sunday. It's relaxed.
There's so much to process. But there was one more thing. Oh yes, you just don't recover from pedophilia. If this guy was really a pedophile, it's not like, oh yeah, that was the old me. It's a really deep embedded disorder. A lot of times it's because that person went through it when they were a child, and they are just, they were born into these families, and there's trauma-based mind control, there's pedophilia, there's ritual abuse, and you just don't snap your fingers and, oh, okay, so that's another indication, is there's no recent anything. There's been accusations. Of course, there's going to be accusations. There's going to be all sorts of smear campaigns, because this is somebody who's not just your next president, but could potentially be taking down the deep state. But I guess what I want to say to people is, if you're a pedophile, you're not just going to be able to snap your fingers and recover from that. If he was ever a pedophile, it would mean that he still is. And it would be very, very easy to bust somebody like that that's under such scrutiny, because you just don't recover. It becomes more like hidden and in the closet, right? Don't you agree?
He's under watch at all times in the day. I mean, you'd see kids going in and out of the White House, or you'd see kids going in and out of like his Mar-a-Lago house that are just being traumatized, or going in and not coming out. Like you would see these things, and people would photograph them and put them out there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So
a lot of people are lining up to be that person. They're like, man, we're not getting anything.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you
can't. Oh, so, go ahead.
You're right. You can't snap your fingers and just be out of like, oh, well, now I'm big in office and I can't do that stuff anymore. I mean, there's elite celebrities that still do that and still hint it on their profiles as if we're stupid. And now we're waking up and we're just like, oh, we didn't even, realize that this is what it was, like the pizza thing. But
exactly, all the hints. And it's almost like they're mocking people that aren't taking it seriously, because there's that whole their kind of cultish philosophy of, we're going to hide in plain sight. We're going to almost like mock the fact that, it is pretty darn obvious and you're too stupid to see it. And it's like, no, we're not. Sorry.
Yeah.
Some people, laugh if you bring up Pizzagate. Oh, it's just a conspiracy, because they're brainwashed by the news and they'll just believe what the news has to say. These are true facts, and the roots of all this go way back, and there's no ability to, really deny it. So the cabal, though, the reason that, people aren't sitting there with their cameras, is because they have already been busted. And I'm sure people, are sitting there with their cameras too, but the dark side that wants to find something on Trump isn't able to. The whole farce of the impeachment and the Russia stuff is all they can really do. That's all that they had. If they had more,
so they can go on. All they have to go on is just people's hate for Trump.
Yep, and steering the media. That is like the final frontier of how the New World Order agenda is going to succeed, is through fake news and false media. And the reason, the scary part is the evidence, the kind of small, like a fraction of what people have exposed connected to these folks, Obama, Clinton, a fraction of that one might find on Trump would be blown out of proportion, right? There's been so much exposed that is being heavily ignored. Flight logs, the fact that Clinton was allowed to speak at the DNC. So even if Biden's not on the flight log, why the heck is he allowing a former president that has photographs with underage girls, who was on the Epstein flight log, speak at the Democratic National Convention like nothing happened? That, to me, is a clear sign that Biden is absolutely wrapped up in it. There was no like, oh my gosh, we're horrified, our former Democratic leaders that we had some kind of faith in were connected to this. There's no outrage. Literally, everybody's turning a blind eye to Clinton at the DNC. It's just like, you're insane. Because there are photographs. Go ahead.
Yeah. And not just that, but like these people who are trying to make films on trafficking and trying to get, us victims of trafficking out there so that they can rescue more people who were in it, are being suicided.
Yeah.
And it's being made as a meme, but nobody's taking it seriously. Like, we really need to sit down and figure out what's going on, because these people, they're dangerous, and yes, it is extremely scary, but as a population, as a mass, what they're doing is they're trying to divide us. They're trying to get us to, go against each other so that they can get a following, and so that, the people who are awake or who have been a part of like trafficking can basically suffer the consequences of, what's going on. I mean, we have to be scared for our life at this point, because if we spill too much, we can be suicided.
Yep.
Is what's so terrifying about the situation. As a mass, we would be able to take that over, but that's not what they want. They want to create a divide.
Yep.
And they have.
Yep. And then that's why there's ridicule, not taking it seriously, thinking it's a political agenda, thinking this and anything that they can throw on it just to uphold their false reality, while they turn a blind eye to legitimate proof and evidence that
Yeah, walking through the kitchen again, it's going to be loud. Hold
okay
on.
there's legitimate proof and evidence that I just, it's insane to me. So to me, they're complicit. I told them, I said, under every comment that you laugh when I bring up human trafficking, when you put a laughter emoji, you're out of here. You're blocked. I'm not going to put up with this shit.
Oh yeah.
And it's insane because there are real victims. There is evidence. Kathy O'Brien wrote a book about Hillary Clinton and the abuse she endured. And this woman's still allowed to speak and endorse Biden in these little clip videos she does. And her husband, who's known to have gone to hunting parties, was aligned with George Bush, who's a corrupt Republican, or, it's not even the labels. People got to drop the labels. So what kind of warning can you give to people that are pursuing the kind of path that you did? And let's shift gears into that. What are your thoughts?
Sorry, I have a bit of a cough, but basically with that situation, all I can say is, as any person, not even just as a woman, be aware of your surroundings. Like they used to say, don't park next to vans, don't, and it's true, really don't. I know, I always look underneath my car. Like whenever I'm walking towards my car, I kind of eye underneath, and I when I'm walking to the front, I eye the back of my car to make sure nobody's gotten in. I lock my car, but it's just like an extra step to really make sure. And not just that, but, as a model, you really have to look into your agency. Make sure that they are reputable. Talk to them. Even if you can get people who have worked with them, see what their following is. Like, really figure out what's going on with them. I know my agency is extremely protective of us, and, would have never, if I would have brought up the job that I had taken on, which at that point my contract with my agency was done and I had to renew it. But I as an excuse to not sign any papers, I let them know, like, I'm in contract with an agency. I can't sign anything without my agency's consent to kind of protect myself. But they look into everything and make sure everything's legitimate. And I know that I've been put into situations before where I've had to call up my agent and say, I'm really uncomfortable. And his words were, get out of there. If you're not comfortable, I'm not going to push you to do anything. You have to really, really, really look into who you're being with, or who you're going with, and make sure that it's legitimate. I know that the person who was the recruiter had a modeling agency, and I wish I could remember, and I tried to look them up on Facebook, but I can't find them. He keeps changing his name to like different weird names. His modeling agency was not even on the internet. And the thing is with modeling, it's very big on social media. You just really have to watch out for that stuff and make sure that you know what you're getting into. And I'm telling you, girls, boys, whoever wants to get into modeling, don't ever let somebody tell you, oh, well, you're 18 years old, you need to go here by yourself. Don't ever let them tell you that, because my agent has never said that to me. And I am 21 years old now, and my mom will still go with me to modeling, because there's a lot of stories about photographers who are rapists. And that's the other thing too, is sometimes agencies are not aware that these photographers have had. So look into your photographer, and if they're asking something that makes you uncomfortable, let them know. Do not be afraid to speak up. It's not going to ruin your modeling career if you say no. And let your agent know. Your agent, if you're with the right person, should be more than okay with you leaving, and should not, be upset with you about it. I know there's been a couple of instances where I've had to leave because the photographer has wanted me to do stuff I'm not comfortable with. And so it's, don't be afraid to speak up. And even if they say, well, this is a part of modeling, and I've made it pretty decently big to where I was a known name in modeling for a little bit. And it's not going to ruin your career if you say no. You are your own person. and you have every right to say no if you're uncomfortable. You're not going to ruin anything in your modeling career ever. They're not going to spill you. They're not going to they're afraid to spill what you've done because you've got blackmail on them now. You've got evidence that they've just tried to get you to do something extremely uncomfortable. So just, mothers out there, if you want to get your kids into modeling, don't leave their side. Never leave them alone with a photographer. Even if you know that photographer, don't ever leave them alone. I mean, it's a very scary world, especially now.
Yeah.
To where you have to keep a watchful eye on everything, and you can never be too overprotective. And there's never, I mean, like I said, even at 21, my mom still goes with me to these modeling jobs.
Excellent.
I mean, it can happen at any age. So, not just that, but these internships that are being offered, make sure it's real. And if it's international, I've gone overseas for modeling before, and usually a parent will go with you for like the first couple of weeks to help you get settled in, or for you to figure out like, your way around. I mean, you're in a new country. Usually that's what's going on. If they're very adamant about you not bringing a parent or a guardian with you, that's a red flag.
Right.
Yes. It's not about being independent. It's about protecting yourself, because your life is priceless.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. So, is there anything we haven't addressed that you feel we need to cover before we close?
I think that's basically it. I think that's really it.
Oh, good.
If there's anything you have questions on, don't hesitate to ask me.
Well, I'm sure, we can connect again in the future and
of course
see where it takes us. I mean, and I'm just it's so wonderful to meet you. Just between you and me outside of this interview, it's really incredible to meet.
Yeah.
No,
it's wonderful to meet you too.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate your clarity, and it's so important, and I just really want to hit the point home that a victim of abuse is very, very aware of the energy signature of abusers. Once you've been through it, you're not going to cover for somebody if they are similar to what your trauma is. You'd be scared shitless and you wouldn't know why, right? Or just feel a really bad feeling, and,
yeah.
and it's your certainty and support of, Trump and really laying it down is huge to help people to see. Let's just hope
let's hope this election goes, the way, because I think there's going to be a lot of shutdown to a lot of stuff. If Trump comes in office, I mean, this world's going to change for the better, but it's going to change.
Yeah, there's so much, opposition. It's crazy how they manipulate his image in the news, and so many in the Black community do not. I mean, this whole racism thing, crazy. I mean, so he's helping child trafficking. He's doing more for minorities than anybody else either that I've noticed. But yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's, to just quickly touch base on that. I mean, it doesn't take much to research and find out that Mar-a-Lago was originally for whites only, and he changed that and made it so that everybody is included. He's been with a woman of African American descent. He's definitely, I mean, he's donated a lot of money to help, minority communities so that they can get better education, or, kind of fix up those areas that are, what they call the projects, and really help them out. And not just that, but he's given, thanks to Tuskegee Airmen, which I've got to meet, which was an honor to meet Tuskegee Airmen. I mean, the things that they did for our country. And then not just that, but even watching him in church, he gave his time to everybody. I mean, no matter what background you came from, it even reached to gay, to, African American, to Asian, to like everything. He gave them time and listened to them and talked to them. I mean, he was not at all, he shook their hands. I mean, he never sat there and picked one over the other. He was there for everybody.
Oh, man, I'm so glad we got that little extra bit in before we close, that you shared all that. That's huge.
Yeah.
You know,
No, it really is.
firsthand experience.
It is. It really is. This is everything I've witnessed with my eyes. And I'm a very, I know the trafficking was what people might call naive, but it's a lot of gaslighting. And, when you're in sexual abuse and that's the life that you've lived, sometimes you have a blind eye to it. But I know with people, I tend to be I have like that sixth sense with people where I can kind of scout them out a little bit. And he's an all around loving guy. And that's what I've experienced from him. And, at least the people who have met him haven't really ever had anything bad to say about him unless they're trying to go against him. So.
Right. Totally. Oh my gosh. Well, it's been such a pleasure to spend this time with you. Thank you for everything that you've shared, and so inspired by your strength and really important stuff, and much love to you and your family.
Thank you.
I look forward to connecting again soon in the future.
For sure. Sounds good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
Really, same here. Really great stuff. Okay. Oh my gosh. Much love to you. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.